Coach, could you just speak to Matt Ariza's historic night?
Yeah, I'm really proud of him. Really came up big and flipping the field, and he's got 12 more yards to tie Brian Stahovich. I was a player on that play that he hit 89 yards in Wyoming. It was at a critical time in the game too. We were down 10, and then to flip the field. But it is all come to fruition because he's put in a whole heck of a lot of work this offseason, particularly in how he catches the ball, just operation time being smooth, and certainly in the weight room with Coach Hall and the rest of the strength staff. He is hitting kickoffs for punt.
So you mentioned the kick up in Wyoming. That's at elevation. So could you pick one? Which was better?
Well, in being there, Brian Stahovich's was aided. Not only did the returner not field it and it bounced and rolled, same for Matt. Matt's went 59 yards in the air and rolled 18 yards for 77 yards. And even furthermore, the Wyoming returner then booted it with his foot and it kept going, which was awesome. But obviously, I'm more excited about Matt's this past Saturday. But both were phenomenal plays.
Coach Maddox just said that he'd like to know who's on the committee for the Mountain West Special Team Player of the Week. Do you happen to know who's on that committee? And what are your thoughts about, how Matt didn't win it?
I have no idea who's on the committee, but the Mountain West Conference is full of great special teams players. So, and a lot of big wins. The Mountain West Conference showed out in the previous 2 weeks, and obviously with last week with big conference wins or teams within the conference getting their wins. So whether he gets the award or not, he's got our player of the game and as well as the punt team because they did a heck of a job covering.
And that was the next question that I had. Just for the kickoff coverage, the punt coverage, they obviously had to get down there quick. There wasn't much room. He didn't outkick the coverage ever. So just could you speak a little bit about what you saw and how they were able to just fly down and make those plays?
Yeah, they did, just like we hope to do with our significant others and now kicking our coverage. Matt did. And the ball kept rolling. But what the guys did well was going to take their shot. First guy down, go to take your shot. Don't be a guy that breaks down and, hopes that the rest of the teammates show up. You initiate, you keep closing, take his space away, and the guys, then the return had to bounce. He had to go lateral. He wasn't returning it right back towards the line of scrimmage right away, and that allowed the rest of the pursuit, and the guys were hustling and they did a great job of taking away space, continuing to close, play with leverage, all things we talk about and drill. Fired me up seeing on Saturday that it come to fruition and guys go and landing their shots.
And then obviously Matt is a tremendous athlete, and he's sprinting down the field trying to get to it as well. What is his responsibility on those plays?
Well, it's certainly not to admire his work. So if he is not closing to it, then he'd be graded down. However, obviously net punt is very important to number 2 because like you just mentioned, I see him down there with the rest of the team and I'm laughing. But the one point we make in the film study is that is a lonely place to be as the kicker on kickoff or punt, and you're admiring your work and now there's 30 yards away from the return and it's just you. The chances of making that tackle go out the window. So you better be down in there. And obviously, if you're not down in there, there's going to be 30 more yards till he gets to you. That's no good either. So you might as well be hauling to take your shot.
His performance and just, being able to meet and Ryan Whitmire his first start.
I didn't hear if there was a initial part of the question. What I did hear was that on his if we were still talking about Matt's performance and then Ryan Wintermeyer's performance, was that the question?
Ryan Wintermeyer, yep, absolutely.
Welcome to college football. If you get a chance, rewatch Rep 1. Great snap, so that was great. Goes down into coverage, and absolutely gets decleated by a block from the side that he sees at the last second as the returner finally gets the ball and goes. Biggest smile on his face. Coach, he got me pretty good. Yeah, Ryan, he did. Welcome to D1 football. Attaboy. So it was awesome experience he will never forget. And I was very proud of his effort and being cool as the other side of the pillow, as Stu Scott used to say, and did a great job.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, Paul. We'll go to Kirk.
Hey, Doug, are there concerns with Matt doing both, that maybe he gets tired toward the end of the game when you might need him for a field goal? Or how do you kind of manage that?
Hey, Kirk, thanks for always writing about Aztec football. We really appreciate it. In regards to Matt doing all three, field goal, kickoff, and punt, that is a tremendous thing on my mind. And just like a pitcher, he's on a kick count during the week. That's very cognizant of it. All three are completely different kicks that utilize different muscles. So as much treatment as possible, he's in there with the training staff at least twice a day. But it's certainly something that I just say, be honest with me. And the great thing is we've got some great competition at the specialist position. You may not know already, but Jack Browning will more than likely play this year for that very reason, and he's ready to go. And same with Colin Hopkins. And then David Delgado, a walk-on from Hilltop High School, had the best field goal percentage in spring ball, and then unfortunately was injured in fall camp for a portion of it. But there's been great competition pushing Matt. Feel really great about them. If they need to come in and do one of the three, all of the three, that they would answer the bell.
I think Jack had a 50-yard field goal in the scrimmage. So if one of those guys was to come in, would it be more likely as a punter? I mean, Ariza set the school record 2 years ago for field goals. So what roles would those other guys play?
Yeah, it would be a as need basis. And Jack's another local guy. West Hills High School, goes to Grossmont. So he's got a little maturity factor, I'd say, over Colin Hopkins right now. Operates at a little better speed, but on a need basis, quite frankly. And whether Matt is sore or whatever the case would be, I feel very confident in tapping him on the shoulder and saying, "You're up."
And how many kicks do you limit him to Ariza to in practice?
On Tuesdays are our coverage team days, so we go punt, kickoff. Wednesdays are return teams. Today is a fundamental Monday. We install basically our game plan for all four teams. It's a very limited kick, and when I say that, it's less than 8. And then kickoffs, you're limited to no more than 2 deep balls. And then I'm usually throwing it off, or they're rotating. So all 3 or 4 kickers are in rotation, so it's not consecutive hits. And then as far as a number, if that's what you're asking me here, over the course of the day, no more than 20. And then obviously you get to Thursday, even less. So, and then it's just to make sure that it's not until it starts to hurt. It's here's the number to work at. Do we hit 21 on some days, 22? Yes, but we make sure that it's not 30 and then I didn't hit that one well, and then they go until they do hit it well, and then that's rep 50.
And then like last year when he mainly focused on kicking field goals, what would his number have been back then? Would it have been significantly higher?
Yeah, it was a little higher just because he's a worker. And the last thing he wants is his teammates to see him standing on the sideline as if he's not doing anything. So I think it was more so, and it was diligently working, but then also the factor of I am working to the rest of his team. So I'm not playing cards over here in the equipment shed. I'm actually getting better too. But to your point, it would probably been around 30 back then.
Then the last thing I want to ask a little more about the 89-yarder. Obviously, a lot of things have to fall into place for that. First of all, you have to be pinned back far enough where you could kick one that far and not having it go into the other end zone. How vivid is that still in your memory, years later? Oh,
it was like yesterday, and why we became bowl eligible. First time since '98. That was the 6th win of that 2010 season for the 88th team. So it was amazing, and at elevation too, where Matt is, I believe, tied in the Mountain West Conference for kickoffs for touchbacks, which blows my mind considering all of the Mountain West schools and the elevation in which they play.
On the 89-yarder, you mentioned that the returner accidentally hit it too, and that made it even go longer?
Yeah, so not only did it carry him off of the turf and roll a good probably 10, 15 yards as he goes down to get it, the oblong ball goes right off his foot or whatnot, and it just took probably another 10, 12 yards added on. Miles Burris running down there to go introduce himself to him. It was a heck of a play.
And you guys, in the moment there, did you guys realize that that was something kind of historic, or when did it sink in?
Well, when you got Mike May and Jamie McConaughey, I mean, these guys are the stat gurus. I mean, within the flight home, they already it was already out. It was like, that's the longest kick in San Diego State history, but obviously it was at a crucial point in the game versus Wyoming. So on the side, it's a huge momentum play. Did we know, like, oh, that's the school record? No, but it was so critical because we were backed up, and now all of a sudden Wyoming's backed up. It was a huge flip in momentum.